Well, g'day there. My name's Charles Mackenzie, and some of you might have recently seen me talking about Australia's deadliest cover-up. What is that cover-up? Well, it's a cover-up related to Australia's deadliest medical scandal, which is contaminated blood. In the decades before the 2000s, Australia's blood supply was contaminated. Tens of thousands of Australians were infected with viruses. It's an incredible story, and it's a story that most people have no idea of. Most people have no idea about how the humanitarian agency, the Australian Red Cross, who manage Australia's blood supply, they're the ones that are in charge of the voluntary donation system in Australia, were basically knowingly using infected donors. How many of us knew that? How many of us knew that when they said that they tested the blood supply, and if they found positive donors, those donors would be asked not to donate? Well, how many of us knew that actually that was a lie? And in fact, the opposite was true. They were asked to donate, and they're asked to donate for a process that makes products for people with bleeding disorders. And of course, the company that they sent this contaminated blood to is Australia's first $100 billion company, CSL. And so the Red Cross, they're partners in crime, and that's literally what we're talking about, literally. The Red Cross, the Australian Red Cross Blood Service, is the shop front of CSL. It gets your blood for free, so you think that you're saving someone else. And in many cases, you are, okay? Blood donors are heroes. We absolutely cherish you. But we don't cherish the management and leadership of the Australian Red Cross, who we believe are criminals, just like the leadership and management of CSL. They're criminals for covering up the truth of what happened. They sent contaminated blood to this company, CSL, and this company, CSL, made it into products for people with bleeding disorders. And it killed 1,400 Australians. Now, many of these victims were children in the 1980s, and some of them survived and they live with terrible conditions and terrible disability today, and they get no help and no answers as to what the bloody hell went wrong. But of course, so many did not. I think there were 1,750 people with bleeding disorders who were infected with HIV and hepatitis C, and 1,400 of them died, and some of them were agonizing, terrible deaths. And some of them went without help, and they also went with a lot of discrimination in those days as they died. So imagine then what it is for me today to be able to share this message. We promised that there was evidence they didn't want you to see. And so often when people like myself say these things, people think, oh, you know, it's conspiracy theory, or it's someone, you know, talking nonsense. We're not. This is absolutely true. But don't just take it from me. Please go to infectedbloodaustralia.com and have a look at the evidence they don't want you to see. Please have a look there. You know, in 2004, the Senate got involved in the cover-up, and we predict that the Senate of Australia is going to be in major trouble. I mean, imagine if you had a terrible disaster, or people being raped, or people being victims of violence, and you held an investigation, and the people investigating buried and covered up the evidence that victims gave. Well, that's exactly what the Senate of Australia did in 2004. They told contaminated blood victims, people in our group, that they were safe to give them their evidence, and that if they gave their evidence, they would be protected from prosecution. And our victims believed them and sacrificed their rights to privacy. They told the people about how they'd lost loved ones to HIV, or how they'd lost loved ones to hepatitis C, or how their children had become infected, or how their lives had been ruined, or how they'd lost their families, or lost their marriages, their jobs. They told the Senate all of that. And do you think they were ever published? No. On behalf of the entire corrupt situation in Australia, the Australian government, the humanitarian agency, the Red Cross, and Australia's first $100 billion company, the Senate of Australia in 2004 buried victims of Australia's deadliest medical scandal. People so deserving of our help and support. Imagine that. No other country did that. They didn't bury the evidence of blood victims in Canada or in Ireland or now in the UK where there's an investigation. Only in Australia. And it's because of the influence of this Australian Red Cross, the shop front of Australia's first $100 billion company, CSL. So please, I invite you, please go to infectedbloodaustralia.com. Have a look at the evidence they didn't want you to see. It's all there. Decide for yourself. Do you think it's right that Australian victims of this, tens of thousands of families, should go without any help at all? If you agree with us that knowingly distributing tainted blood to children is a crime, then we ask you to support us, support our rights to an investigation, and fill out our support form on infectedbloodaustralia.com. I'm Charles Mackenzie, and I thank you very much for your time. Thank you.